Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the latest edition of the Woke Bros. Of course, I'm your co-host, Big Wos, aka Wosny Lambre, joined as always by my brother on the west side, Nando Vila. What's going on with you, bro?
Doing well. Can't complain. You know, just watching the politics.
Just watching the drip of this infrastructure fight. On today's show, man, as somebody who was once victim to, employee of, and just had the front row seat of watching a guy run a fake media company, this OZZY Fest news, it was just like, wow, this is so like familiar. Like all of it, all of the posturing, the faking, the fake buying of views, buying of followers. It's so like, it's like step one in fake media. We want to get into some of that. AOC, man, not been her finest month in the public eye, to say the least. She voted for the Iron Dome.
She voted present.
She voted present, excuse me, for the Iron Dome.
We gotta be clear. She didn't vote for it. She didn't vote against it.
It's a symbolic vote, but it's important in its symbolism.
Yeah.
And so we'll get into that because AOC she's an important figure here. But first, man, Kyrsten Sinema, Joe Manchin. We see Nancy Pelosi try to waver. She tried to signal publicly, like, well, maybe we could just pass the bipartisan one and just come back to our thing. And so to bring the people up to speed, Nando, Joe Manchin is still, it's too expensive. It's what he said it would be crippling, even though there's all these pay-fors. It would be crippling to pass this bill. Kyrsten Sinema seems to be just against it, just on principle, or just it could be corruption. It could be different other things that we want to explore. And guess what? The progressives in the House said, yo, your bipartisan joint is DOA. They are holding the line on the bill, the freaking corporate giveaway that is that bipartisan infrastructure bill. When Sinema and Joe Manchin, they were so happy to walk out on the White House lawn with Joe Biden and be like, yeah, we did it, bipartisan. And it was the most terrible bullshit bill that could possibly be passed. The progressives in the House, the progressive caucus, salute to them. They holding the line. They said, fuck you. If we can't get our bill that's for the people, you can't get your corporate giveaway.
Yeah. And that's what happened is that Nancy Pelosi, she claimed from the beginning that she was going to hold the bills together. And then at the last second, she tried to decouple them. And the progressives, for the first time, basically in like our life, we're able to hold the line and wield power and just be like, even though it's like a kind of like a mutually assured destruction type of power, you can't let them get away with it. You can't let them get away with murder like that. And so they held the line and promised to kill the bill. I mean, it looks like they got even more people than people expected to commit to holding the line. I mean, it just shows just how different the politics of today are from even just a few years ago when like the Congressional Progressive Caucus would have caved like just absolutely like
a house of cards.
At the first sign of resistance, they would have just caved, but they didn't. They didn't cave. And then the question becomes, it seems pretty clear that, I mean, it's very obvious that the progressives like Bernie and in the Senate, but also like all the progressives in the House, AOC, whatever, the squad, that they're fine letting the infrastructure bill die. Like they don't give a shit about they don't like the infrastructure bill. They're fine letting it die. They'd rather nothing than just the infrastructure bill, and that's pretty obvious. The question then becomes, are the conservative Dems fine with that as well? Like, are they fine with no bill? And that's the game of chicken. We talked about it last week. There was supposedly a deadline. They just blew past the deadline, and they just like, because it was an internal deadline anyway.
It was a fake deadline. Yeah,
it was a fake deadline. And like, I just find it so weird because like there's like all this like, it's like not even worth getting into, but all this like weird internal there's all these kinds of like weird kind of like, oh, we got to fund the highway bill to, and then that's like coming up, and then we're going to couple it to that. Like there's these incredibly Byzantine and obscure parliamentary maneuvers going on, completely alien to even people who are covering this shit for a living, and it's going to affect the lives of millions of people, and like basically no one understands it. But the fundamental state of the play is that do the conservative Dems want that awful bipartisan infrastructure bill, or do they not? I mean, they're not going to get it without the reconciliation thing. And honestly, my gut tells me, and it's changed a lot, but my gut, like just seeing Sinema and Manchin, especially Sinema, I mean, she seems like she's just doing it just to get off on it. Like that she is, it's like, I mean, people have talked about, yes, she's taken money from the awful people. And yes, she was doing, you know, she just had a meeting yesterday with like business lobbyists that was like very, very high profile. But like, I think she's doing that as a way to say like, fuck you. You know what I mean? She's doing it on purpose, like as a troll, as like, you know, this is, you think you can fucking get to me? Like I'm gonna do this awful thing that I know you hate, and you know, fuck you. Like I think she kind of gets off on it. I mean, I get, that's the feeling I get. I feel like Joe Manchin is much more like straightforwardly corrupt, you know, and like just fucking give his daughter like $1 million, and you know, this will all go away,
and it'll all go away. And you know, the crazy thing too, Nando, about all of this, that it's just not being framed properly. It's like they're going against the president of the party. Yeah. Like, this is insane to me. Yeah. Like it's not, like they are derailing the agenda of the president. Yeah. The guy who is supposedly the most important person in the entire party, and Kyrsten Sinema has no problem saying, fuck you, I'm gonna stick my thumb in your eye. Like that just seems absurd to me. And you know, I assumed that the mainstream press was gonna go out and just basically blame the squad and the progressives for but you can't, because they're the ones on the side of the shit that Joe Biden is.
They're trying to save Joe Biden's agenda. Right. That's what they're trying to do. Like the media is framing it as like, oh, look at these, you know, like the progressives are tanking the bill. And that's not what's happening. You know, this is not what's happening. The progressives are fighting to uphold Joe Biden's agenda. The ones who are tanking the agenda are the conservative Democrats. That's like Stephen King tweeted, you know, Stephen King, the guy who wrote The Shining and Carrie and The Stand and all that shit. He tweeted out like, you know, oh, look at these progressives, you know, like holding out for their purity. But it's like, no, shut the fuck up, dude. They're not doing that. They're fucking upholding the president's agenda, like the one that he campaigned on and that they all campaigned on.
Dude, and here's the other thing that gets on my nerves that needs to be pointed out about media and their coverage and dummies like Stephen King. We tend to only call people extremists. It's like, you know, the fucking crazy right-wingers who are like straight KKK, right? Like we call them extremists. We never call Paul Ryan an extremist. He's an extremist. He's extremely corporatist. Like it's extreme the extent to which this guy is a corporate show. But because he says the nice words and he's good at DC cocktail parties, he's not extremist. He's considered a moderate Republican because he doesn't profile as a KKK member. But he's extreme in his views, super extremist. That's the same thing with Sinema and Joe Manchin. They're the extremists. Yeah. They're the hardliners. The moderate thing right here would be like, all right, you get your thing, I get mine. That's the moderate. That's moderation. And not even, and forget that part of it. Another thing that I mentioned on TYT yesterday was the $3.5 trillion infrastructure bill over 10 years, which it needs to be noted, is a moderate bill because it's paid for. They raised the funds for it. If Biden wanted to do some, you know, crazy lefty flaming leftist thing, he'd be like, no, let's make it $6 trillion, figure out how to pay for it later. Yeah. Like this shit is, they raised the revenue for it. It's paying for it. There's nothing like progressive left wing, or this is just what governments do. This is just how a normal government functions. But I think part of the problem is that these fools, they get portrayed within the mainstream media or the corporate media as moderates, as centrists. They're in the middle. No, they're not. They're on the extremes of their ideology.
Yeah. No, the media, I mean, we talk about it a lot, but they're just like children. They can only see like the most surface, the most surface level thing, you know, like it's like, you're right. The thing that means extreme versus moderate is a purely rhetorical, stylistic thing. There's nothing in terms of the substance of it. You know, if you look at the substance of the 3.5 trillion reconciliation bill, it is a centrist bill in any substantive definition of like any sane use of language. That is a centrist bill, and to destroy it, you know, and especially when your entire party is for it, is an extreme thing to do. For Kyrsten Sinema to derail her own president's agenda is a very extremist thing to do. It's like you know, it's like an arsonist or something. It's incredibly violent. I don't know. Like, it's like, it is. Yeah. She is not like moderate or anything like that. I mean, it's infuriating to see, like, it's infuriating to see this whole thing go down because, you know, we need this shit. I mean, as small a pittance as this bill is, like, man, we fucking need this shit. Like, we need this shit. And it's so frustrating to see just that a very small number of people can have such a huge influence, real influence over the fates of tens of hundreds of millions of people. And that they often maybe just do it for like the most extremely petty and personal fucking bullshit differences. And then to see at the same time, you know, and this may be like a segue, the Savannah Syndrome bill sail through, you know, to provide expanded medical funds for the victims of the so-called Savannah Syndrome, which is one of the funniest things that's ever happened. I did a whole segment on Jacobin on it. It's fucking amazing. And then to see, after progressives did a little bit of parliamentary maneuvering to block the Iron Dome funding, the Israel's Iron Dome, which is like their missile defense system, which we pay for some fucking reason, which, like, we can't get healthcare. Israeli citizens have socialized medicine. If you're an Israeli, you have Medicare for all, essentially. We do not have that, and we're paying for their fucking Iron Dome. It's insane. After progressives did some parliamentary maneuvers and they thought they killed it, they just brought up a new bill, clean bill, and it sailed through in like record time. Like, it took fucking 5 minutes for that shit to fucking be written, presented, passed, and bye, see you later. It's pretty remarkable. Like, anything that actually helps regular Americans, we have to hem and haw. We have to hem and haw whenever and you know, again, it's hard for me to not think that's not intentional. Anytime it's revolves around making the lives of Americans better, thereby essentially changing what the expectations can be of government. They're just guys, be careful.
You gotta be careful with that. You give them a taste.
Think about how sadistic you have to be one of these people. Like, the sadism involved in it is just crazy. But yeah, I mean, this Savannah Syndrome bill, it's like been one of my hobby horses for a while now. I did a whole segment on Jacobin on it. It's these CIA agents around the world who are complaining about like feeling woozy or dehydrated or whatever the fuck, and they think they're claiming that it's Cubans with like ray guns melting their brains. And like the press is actually reporting this as like a serious thing, and it's gotten to the point where Susan Collins introduced a bill to give expanded medical care for these people, and it sailed through. Zero opposition.
No opposition. Everybody said our spy masters have to get better health care for these weapons that don't fucking exist. And you know, another thing I do want to bring up, Nando, because you sent me a really dope piece from Talking Points Memo, where the premise of the piece is like, yo, the Democrats need to learn how to lose well. What does that mean? hello, it's fine going down in flames with the $3.5 trillion bill if it means scuttling that thing. Because to pass just that and do nothing in a fight for the people is a bad fucking look. Okay? When George Bush, and she cites that when George Bush tried to basically end Social Security, the Dems were like, yo, should we like negotiate with them? Blah, blah, blah. And it was like, no, what the fuck? This is probably the single most popular piece of government program that exists. This and Medicare, nothing that we put out as a government has a higher approval rating. Nobody, people don't like anything else we do more than this shit. Why the fuck would we help him destroy this? And it helped them, and it worked, man, because people were like, fuck that. We love our Social Security. Though you can't touch Social Security. So, you know, it's like with this Sinema situation, it's like, why the fuck would you give this away to her and them? It just doesn't make sense that y'all would help them achieve their ends for no reason. And, you know, it's just crazy, honestly, that these people don't understand this. And it got me thinking about just the general nature of the Democrats and fucking liberals when they browbeat us. Which, by the way, next time Sinema has to go up for election or a primary, is Joe Biden gonna rally the troops like Barry did against Bernie? Is he gonna just take this chick down? Like, I find it very hard to believe that that would ever happen because these people aren't fucking wired that way. But you know what I was thinking about with the Dems, I was like, yo, man, like, the fucking Dems and the Republicans, as far as us as citizens, they're both absentee dads, right? Like, they both abandon us. But guess what? The one dad, when he comes around, being the Republicans, what they have for their kids is candy. It's like
dirty jokes.
Dirty jokes. You're a great American. You're the shit, Johnny. Blah, 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 blah. Like, at least they give their fucking kids a pat on the head and then go back to not giving a fuck about them. The Dems, all they do is, oh, you didn't vote for me?
Oh, you didn't do your homework?
Exactly. It's like, you don't even come around, motherfucker. Now you want to tell me what to do?
Matt Crispin from Chapo, I think, has identified the real essence of the two parties. And it's the Democrats are the party of don't be an asshole. You know, they're constantly telling people don't be an asshole. And the Republicans are the party of don't be a pussy. You know? And they both suck. And I think that you and I are wired, you know, for a million reasons. Like, we're never going to be Republicans, but like, you can understand, you can see a certain
the appeal
of like the don't be a pussy. At least, hey, the shit sucks. Everything sucks. Don't be a pussy about it. You know,
don't be a pussy about it. And if you got something, don't apologize for it. You're amazing. You're American. We're American. We're the shit. It's these fucking liberals who are always fucking killing us. Why don't they fucking leave and go to France or something? Like, it's obvious what the messaging is. You know, like, what the fuck? Why would anybody feel good about these fools? It's crazy.
No, man. I mean, the only reason why so the Democratic agenda, at least in theory, is way more popular than the Republican one, in theory.
Of course.
Right? Which is why there are more Democrats than Republicans in this country, which is why Democrats win the popular vote in every single presidential election from now on. They've won it every single presidential election from 1992, except for one. The Democrats have won the popular vote. There are simply more Democrats in the country than Republicans. And it's because the Republican agenda, if it were implemented, people would fucking riot on the streets. It's incredibly unpopular. The only reason why, there's two reasons why the Republicans kind of maintain a certain amount of power. One is the sort of structural imbalances of American politics, the Senate, blah, blah, blah. We've talked about it a million times, gerrymandering, et cetera. But the other reason is just that libidinally, that like from an appeal standpoint, the Democrats are so fucking annoying that like, even though they have all the popular things, people fucking hate them. And the Republicans, even though they have all the unpopular things, at least they give people license to just like not give a shit, you know? They don't make you feel bad about it. Like, they don't make you feel bad about everything all the time. You know, like the Democrats, their messaging is constantly always like, if you don't do this for me right now, these big bad Republicans are going to like destroy your life. And it's like, man, that's just brutal, you know, like, or not just your life, but like the lives of like, you know, immigrants and black people, whatever,
and the
people
thing
who they throw under the bus all the time.
But the thing too, Nando, and Ethan pointed it out to me. He's like, my boy Ethan, he's like, you know, the problem with the big bad GOP boogeyman, it's like Gavin Newsom just destroyed those people. Okay, there is no GOP boogeyman over here. That's a one. Two, places like, I don't know, San Francisco, where you guys, the Dems, have unchecked power, where public school teachers who work in San Francisco can't afford to live in San Francisco. Like, y'all presided over that with unchecked power. So what are we talking about here?
Yeah.
You know, that's why when we don't seem like we love the Dems, because what the fuck is there to love about these cats, man? Like, I'm sorry, this shit is fucking horrific. And most of the time, when left to their own devices, they don't turn things into some grand utopia. Look at the homelessness. Look at it's craziness in cities like Los Angeles and San Francisco, where the Dems are more than ascendant. They are dominant. They are the dominant entity in places like
literally that. No excuses. No excuses
whatsoever. And again, you know, unlike some of our friends, Nando, I don't think that Republicans are so dumb that they don't notice this hypocrisy. Like, just look at it. It's pretty fucking obvious, okay?
Yeah.
And you know, so we're watching the Kyrsten Sinema thing. I just really find it hard to believe that a nothing like her, who's like, you don't matter at all, that she could just carry on this way with no repercussions. This seems unfathomable, but it's the Dems. Like, never underestimate the Dems' ability to completely fuck up a good opportunity. And, you know, I'm glad Nando briefly mentioned the Iron Dome. But, last week, I think this happened on Friday or Thursday of last week, where, you know, I'm scrolling my Twitter timeline as one does, and I see a video of one Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez casting a present vote, and she's crying. She's visibly crying on camera because she had to cast this present vote for the Israeli Iron Dome. Again, member of the squad, everybody's favorite progressive, free Palestine, all of that, all of that good stuff, all of that liberal shit that everybody loves who's liberal. She's a big part of that. And here she is with the present vote for some right-wing authoritarian bullshit, and she knows it's bullshit. And man, she let the waterworks fly, Nando. What was that? What happened there?
I mean, who the fuck knows? Is the real answer, you know, because I can't wrap my head around it. It makes no fucking sense. I mean, apparently there's a video where shortly before the vote, you can basically see Nancy Pelosi going to AOC and basically talking to her, and then AOC is like visibly upset. And you know, the implication being that Nancy Pelosi put the squeeze on her somehow to change her no vote to present, and who knows what that was. And who knows if that even was what they were talking about, although it seems pretty obvious if you watch the video. Because the whole spectacle of her switching her vote at the last second from no to present, because it's not like she just went up and voted present. She had indicated she was voting no, along with Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, and Ayanna Pressley, and a few others. And then she switched it last second to present. Who the fuck knows why, and who the fuck knows what? But like the whole spectacle of it, I thought was just so embarrassing and shameful for her to just cry on the congressional floor like that over something like this. And then she puts out this statement, which is just like, it's like a 12-paragraph thing with a bunch of gobbledygook talking about why she like opposes the substance of the bill. And then she goes, in addition to opposing the substance of the Iron Dome supplemental bill, the process of bringing it to the House floor was deeply unjust. The legislative language itself was initially introduced earlier this week by way of an attempt to quietly slip this funding into routine legislation without any of the usually necessary committee debate, markup, or regular order. A funding leap this significant in a policy area that is already so charged and fraught for many communities. Which communities are those? Particularly our own, deserves the respect of a proper legislative process. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like seriously, like, what are you talking about? Like, what does that mean? The communities that it affects are own. First of all, the only people this affects are the Palestinians in Gaza. And second of all, like, were you gonna like have a fucking town hall meeting with them to discuss whether they support or oppose it? You know, like, you know what the fuck, you know, the answers are to that.
It's obvious.
And again, I just don't see what the political calculus for her is. Like, what it is. Like, she just comes off, she doesn't please anyone. Like, it's not like you know, people who are big Israel supporters who need the United States to fund the Iron Dome to the tune of $1 billion on top of the already I think like $3 or $4 billion we give them in defense spending every year. It's not like they're going to trust AOC on Israel issues because of this. It's not like they're going to be like, oh yeah, AOC, she's one of us. This doesn't win her any points with those people. And then all it does is make her look like a fucking, like, I'm sorry, like a weak idiot, you know, for obviously going against her principles, talking openly about how she's going against her principles because she opposes the bill. And then, I don't know, like, the whole thing was just so baffling and weird and upsetting and honestly, like, disappointing because we, you know, we need a good AOC, you know, like, we need her to be good. So,
and by good, we mean good at the job, not like some stupid idea of morality or whatever, meaning be a good operator, an effective political operator, somebody who understands how to maneuver within the Washington bureaucracy while also doing what's needed for normal everyday Americans. And let's be clear, like, this isn't like the Sinema vote in the Senate where this completely could have tanked something or completely could have made something happen. All of this stuff is basically symbolic. It's like, trust me, the United States government does not need an AOC vote to pass something that's going to help Israel out. There's plenty of support for it within the government. It's not about that. It's just kind of like, obviously, like, the symbolism matters somehow. You know, the precedent being set that, like, all right, we could get her to do a present vote and not a no vote. Like, that matters somehow. We won't know. We probably won't know for years from now, but it somehow matters. And I would suspect that her colleagues have a great idea about why it matters, which is why she felt so embarrassed and cried. Like, the people who, you know, she wants to have street cred among probably look at it like, wow, that's some sucker shit. And perhaps this is a sign that she's headed to the dark side, Nando.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I don't know. Again, like, you're right that it's symbolic. But it's because of that symbolism also that it's important to, like, just we were talking about with the infrastructure bill. It's important to show that you can't be, like, fucking bought like that by, like, a thing that's, like, so craven. I mean, that's the thing, is that the Iron Dome thing, it's not like there's other votes, like, you know, for example, like when Bernie takes a tough vote on guns or whatever, you know, like there's at least like a popular constituency in America for that. And it's just like, this is just like such a craven political calculation over something that like, literally, like, you know, it just, there's no justification for it in any meaningful way. And again, honestly, like, it's who knows what the calculus is there. I mean, the sort of like surface level thing. I mean, Jamal Bowman also voted for it. He's also from New York. Right. The calculus is that, like, if you want statewide office in New York, you can't, like, go against Israel stuff. You know, whatever. But like that strikes me as, like, just one of those conventional wisdom things that doesn't necessarily always play out in the way it does. And the thing that does kill you is to, like, go against your principles. I mean, that like, so brazenly, like, and then be open about it that you're going against your principles. I don't know. The whole thing was just very strange and weird.
Yeah, man, look, it's our job on this show to monitor what's going on with the politicians who are important to us and who matter to the project that we've undertaken as people who want to spread the word about the issues of working Americans. So we got to keep our eye on AOC, man. And I'm telling you, boy, look, and look, I hope this makes her more ascendant. I really do. I have a hard time seeing it right now, how this will, she's, as they say, these are the couple of eggs that she's breaking in order to make an omelet. I hope so, but it's just hard to see that right now.
Well, and I mean, we talked about it with Anna on Jacobin, and a lot of people got really mad at me and were tweeting at me about why we were going after AOC specifically and not like Bowman and whatever. It's like, first of all, we go after AOC specifically because we have higher hopes for her. Jamal Bowman is he's always just going to be a congressman. You know what I mean? Like, people talk about AOC as like a potential leader because she's got like that it factor, right? And she's already kind of emerged as a has like that celebrity factor, right? That Bowman just is always going to be like a nice troop in the broader cause, whereas AOC was always tapped as a leader in the cause. And so you have to hold her to a higher standard. Like, I'm sorry, you just do, you just do. And that's maybe that's unfair, but that's the unfairness of being the visible leader of a movement, is that you have to be held to a higher standard. And that sucks. But that's the reality. If you're just some fucking foot soldier in the movement, you're going to be held to a different standard. And it sucks that Bowman did it too, because Bowman also knows that it's wrong to fucking fund the Iron Dome. We know that. He knows that. We all know it. But Bowman is always just going to be.
You think this was a New York thing? This is like because the Israeli interests are so freaking strong within New York politics that they basically had to cave.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that it's like the Israeli interest. I mean, they're just like there's a lot of Jews in New York, and it's like a center for Jewish culture in the United States and whatever. It's not like the Israeli lobby or whatever has like a special hold over New York, but like I think it's just that. I mean, again, and who knows like what the Nancy Pelosi of it all of it was, like why Nancy Pelosi feels like she needs to be able to put the squeeze on AOC for this. Maybe it's just like a demonstration of power. Like Nancy Pelosi like loves to do that because that's what powerful people do, is they need to remind you that they have power over you. They need to do it just because they can. She didn't need AOC's vote. It wouldn't have changed anything. But she just had to show her, like, no, I drink your milkshake, kind of thing. And she needed to tell her to her, and then she cried about it.
Marjorie Taylor Greene would never. All right, as the world turns, man, progressives burn, but we move on. Yeah. Man, really strange piece in the New York Times this week about OZZY Media and just a strange call with Goldman Sachs investors involving a YouTube employee, imposter, lies, and just the dude who did it had a mental health breakdown. Mark Lazary, co-owner of the Milwaukee Bucks, is involved. It's fucking insane, Nando. Talk to the people a little bit about OZZY Media, because to be honest, like I've seen the OZZY shit around, but like I never like. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So like the first time I'm really reading, I'm like, oh God, another fake media company.
Yeah. Well, OZZY is a media company, as you mentioned, founded by a guy named Carlos Watson, who is a black guy. He sounds Latino, but he's a black guy, and from Miami, who actually went to my high school. Breaking news. Wow. Me and him went to. We went to the same high school.
Wait, he's a black Cuban?
Miami. I don't think he's Cuban. I think he's just like a black guy.
Okay.
Yeah, but his name is Carlos. But I guess it's kind of like Carlos Boozer or something.
Be liking the name Carlos for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah. There's a lot of Carlos out there. Yeah. And he founded this media company in 2013. And it's been around forever. It's incredibly well funded. Like they put on this like OZZY Fest every year where they have like Hillary Clinton shows up and like Grover Norquist showed up one time when I was there.
Grover Norquist.
Like,
wow.
It's like this like incredibly well funded thing. Like, just like big heavy hitters show up. But it's been around for years. But like you said, you've never really interacted with it, which is strange, right? Like, you would think that if a media
never read an article,
No,
read a podcast, seen a YouTube video, nothing.
Yeah. Yet they kept on claiming for years that they had this massive audience. Yet no one in the real world ever seemed to post an OZZY article on Facebook or on Twitter or a video. No one you've known has ever read one of those. But they kept on claiming that they had like 50 million people, users interacting with their sites, and that they had millions of views on YouTube and whatever. So what they do is they basically claim they have this huge audience to get more investment. And the investment is then essentially used to pay themselves salaries, essentially. For years, like they've been running this scheme. Carlos Watson, who has shows on YouTube and hosts like interview panels and things like that, and sells formats to PBS and other places. Like he does it on the strength of like this kind of quote unquote audience. And it turns out that it's all fake. That he was essentially juicing the numbers, straight up lying about the numbers. Like there's YouTube videos out there from OZZY that have like 1 million views, and then they'll have like 8 likes and 1 comment, which is just like a very suspicious.
That's like rookie. That's amateur hour when you get all of the views or the likes and no comments. Like even an amateur sleuth can sniff that one out.
You don't need to have a big fancy Goldman Sachs job to figure that out. But they got away with it for years. And so I guess like they must be desperate because they were looking for a new round of investment from Goldman Sachs for $40 million. And the Goldman Sachs people were like, okay, well, we want to have a call with like your YouTube partners to discuss like your in
the Times piece, Nando, they said to Goldman Sachs that, yo, we're so locked in with YouTube, like we're good. They're like a partner of ours. And Goldman Sachs is like, I put YouTube on the phone so we can like, all right, cool. Like if y'all really partnered up with them and they're the ones running the whole ship, of course this is something worth pursuing.
Yeah. So then they gave they connected them with the YouTube head of partnerships. Which was like there with a Gmail account, which is always kind of suspicious. And then they were like, they set up a Zoom call, and then the guy was like running late, the YouTube guy, and he was like, wait, sorry, I can't log into Zoom. Something's going on. I can't log into Zoom. Can we just do a regular conference call? So they have the conference call, and the YouTube guy's like, oh yeah, OZZY, millions of views. We love them. Carlos Watson is the best. And then the people at Goldman Sachs were like, yo, is something weird going on with his voice? Like something funny. His voice is sounding kind of funny. And then they realize that the voice was digitally altered. Like it was like a serial killer talking through a fucking, like a voice modulation thing. And so then they got suspicious. So they emailed the guy's assistant, not through the Gmail address that Carlos Watson had given them for the guy. And they were like, we never had this call. This call never existed. We've never spoken to these people. And so YouTube like it launches like an investigation into this fucking shit. The Carlos Watson and OZZY people are like, oh yeah, we're sorry. That was our COO. He's having a mental breakdown. He did this, even though Carlos Watson is the one that gave them the Gmail address.
That doesn't make any sense. You guys went along with it. Either you had this relationship with them or you didn't, which you clearly didn't. Y'all went along with the farce. And just they had to be desperate because like the idea that they either were desperate or it's so easy within the game of modern finance to just lie and fake your way to some bread. Because like
it's both.
If I was trying to open up my books to Goldman Sachs for some investments, I would think like, yo, it's Goldman Sachs. Like, they know what they're doing. Like, they're fucking thorough. They're fucking golden. Like, what the hell? Like these dudes thought they could sneak one past Goldman Sachs.
Yeah. And I think it's a combination of both because, like, for example, Theranos happened, in which she got like massive investment and had major people. And Henry Kissinger was on our fucking board of Theranos. You know, like, and the whole thing was a fucking scam in the first place, which is my broader point about this whole OZZY thing, which is very funny to watch. And, you know, it's like, it's the kind of thing like, you know, there's a certain satisfaction because most of us that work in media have always seen OZZY and been like, yo, this shit's a fucking scam. You know, like basically the scam that he was running was selling basically diversity, woke diversity cred to the highest bidder. You know, be like, hey, just give me a couple $1 million, and then you can say you invested, you believe you're championing diversity, and then you invested in like a black and brown business or whatever. And like, we're like the slick, polished people who are just going to provide that service for you. We're not going to make any money for you. You can just say like on some presentation that you are taking diversity seriously. That's the scam that they were running. But it's no different from almost any other scam that's happening in the American economy, which has become essentially a scammer's economy. Like ever since we stopped making things, like, you know, there were problems with the middle of the 20th century, the sort of heyday of American capitalism. But at least like there was a reality to it, in that like they made fucking cars, or they fucking made steel, or they made whatever the fuck, you know, like you can't fake that really. Now all of value is created by basically hype. And that's it. That's what the economy is. Not just Theranos and not just OZZY, which are just like the tip of the spear of the scam. You know, they went a little too far with it. Normal companies like Uber is a fucking scam. You know,
WeWork. I watched the WeWork doc.
WeWork is a scam.
Lies.
They're all scams. And that's what the American economy run on, because there is all this value and all this fucking money. Excess accumulated in Silicon Valley and on Wall Street. They literally don't know what to do with it. And there are no productive investments. That's the key here, is that global capitalism, the rate of profit has fallen to a degree where there are no productive sectors anymore to send it to. There's no, you know, and they're certainly not going to give it to us to, like, you know, improve our healthcare system.
No, of course not.
So they need to recycle all this cash all the way by investing in these scams, you know, and then essentially the government bails them out by printing more money, like when the whole thing collapses, right? Like that's the scam. And it's the whole thing is just a giant Ponzi scheme. And it's kind of like, when you stop to think about it, it's very dystopian. There are very few sectors that are real anymore. I mean, that's one of the reasons why like sports is still kind of nice, because, you know, at the end of the day, like sports does have a real thing to it. Like it has a real fundamental thing underneath it all.
Right.
There's a product that we're consuming.
Consuming that is real. Like these guys are actually out there doing this thing. We're actually deriving some level of entertainment or joy from it. And like, we get it, spectacle, you name it, right? Like it's a circus. Like that's an actual thing that's happening. The value of WeWork, like just like you guys are reinventing.
It's all hype.
Offices.
Yeah.
Offices.
Even like Tesla, you know, Tesla is in a way, it both makes cars, but it's also a giant scam. Why do you think Tesla comes up with these fucking harebrained schemes every fucking 6 months? You know, is because they need to create that illusion of like
something else is happening.
Something else is happening.
All
that they
we
need to
sell is cars,
right? Like if they just concentrated on doing that, they wouldn't get the massive government money and all that shit that they need to survive.
They make a lot of money. They'd be super profitable, but Elon Musk wouldn't be one of the wealthiest men. What's his cap, by the way?
Yeah.
When they say that his company is allegedly worth $100 billion, no, it's not. No, it's not.
Have you noticed that Uber, like, you can't use it anymore?
Oh, it's
like
awful.
Uber, it's awful.
It's just awful. They tried to blame it on the drivers at first. I don't know what it is. It's terrible.
What it is, it's the chickens coming home to roost. And in the sense that Uber was amazing in the early days when it was just like VC money was just pumping it up, and they had all these drivers all the time because they didn't have to make any money. Like they didn't make any money. They lost billions and billions of dollars every year,
subsidizing our cheap rides to get us hooked to the app. With the idea, by the way, at first, which is just the most dystopian, fucked up shit that could
driverless cars.
Of driverless cars. It's like, we're gonna get them hooked on the app, then we're gonna kick the drivers to the curb. Then we won't have to pay the drivers.
Exactly. So the driverless cars thing they've abandoned. They don't have that anymore. So now they have to make it work with drivers. So like now that's why the prices have gone up. That's why the supply has gone way down. Like now you call an Uber and it's like 45 minutes when it used to be like fucking 46 seconds. It was like, it was at your door.
Tops, and Uber would be on you, which by the way, like it's not even like, because I know a lot of people like Nando points out all the time. We tend to think of ourselves in terms of consumers first. Like I know I need way more time before I call an Uber now.
Yeah,
like,
that's fine.
Don't expect that an Uber's.
It's just like it used to be in the 90s.
Exactly.
Like,
period.
When you call a cab, it sucked,
dispatch and they'd be like, "Yeah, somebody be there in 40 minutes."
Yeah,
like this straight
whatever.
Up. That's
you
what
know, like, just plan your life around it. Fuck you.
That's it. You know. But yeah, it's the OZZY thing because a lot of people listening to this will know that myself, Jade Hoy, Zach Harper, when we started leverage the chat with a guy who was allegedly some media maven and had an investor, and then it turned out that he basically stole all of the seed money from the company from his co-founder within a 3 or 4 month span. Like literally, I think it was like $600,000 or something ridiculous. In 3 months, he had stolen. But like when you would be on calls with him, like he'd be telling like ad people, like potential advertisers, like, "Yo, we're doing like 30,000 downloads an episode," when we were at like 12, which like 12 is like a good number, but like it's clearly not 30,000. Yo, we doing this. Yo, he's buying followers. He's all of this scam shit that OZZY Media is doing. This guy was the king of. That's why reading it, I was like,
dude,
wow.
Someone shared an OZZY video on YouTube that had I think it was like 800,000 views. 6 likes and 1 comment, and the comment was just about like how this was a scam. Clearly, it's like 600,000 views and 6 likes. Like this house is suspect, and that was the only comment.
That's it.
On the YouTube video.
Clearly, this is a scam.
And the other thing is, you've probably seen the billboards around LA. Like I see them all the time for the Carlos Watson show on Amazon. It turns out it's not on Amazon, like on the Amazon network, the way we would think. It's on this like thing that you can anyone can upload. Like
Amazon lets people put stuff on there. And we got the first. It's like wow, like
it's like it's the most diverse talk show on Amazon. It's like not even on. Yeah, it's just the whole thing is just a scam.
Obviously a lie.
Yeah,
this is but man, living in LA, honestly, Nando, it's a very LA story too. Just the level of scamming and faking till you make it is incredible. Anyway, that's our show for today. Thank you guys for joining us. Of course, become a Patreon at patreon.com/Count the Dings. Make sure you're checking out all the other Count the Dings offerings. We'll see you guys next week. We're out of here. Peace.